Okay. I like to do different types of things, you know, and I think a lot of people know me primarily as a singer and as a big band leader and as an entertainer. And that's something that I love to do, and I spend a lot of my time doing that. I also love to play the piano, and even though I play it within the context of my big band show, it's not often that I get to go and play in a small group situation. I do it, and I've been fortunate enough to sign with Marsalis Music, which is a great new young label with some very talented artists, Branford Marsalis, Doug Womble. I was very honored to be a part of that as well. So in addition to playing my big band stuff and doing those bigger shows, I'm able now to do some touring with my small group, with the quartet, in support of Other Hours, which is the album I have out on Marsalis Music. Be here at Newport for the 50th anniversary. You know, it's such a heralded festival, and it's such an important part of the history of jazz, at least for the last 50 years. And I really wanted to have a chance not only to come with my big band and put on, you know, the show that I do that most people are familiar with. I also wanted to come in a small group context too, to play some piano. There was a lady in the audience who was asking me to sing, and I heard her ask it a few times, and it made me feel proud to know that that's not the right place for that. That stage that I played with the quartet on was just for playing, and I felt that it was appropriate to have both sides of what I like to do represented here at Newport, because Newport's had big bands in the past, and they've also had, obviously it's a jazz festival too.
That was perfect.
Good. Is that going to be a problem?
It's a Newport sound.
That's a Newport sound.
But, I don't, sorry. I didn't mean to answer the question.
You know, the problem is it doesn't sound like a horn, unfortunately. It sounds like
Just sounds like a noise.
sounds like a sickly sound.
We'll make it a foghorn.
Cut away to a boat.
That was really good. That's
Good.
perfect.
Okay. A couple of things. They have to be sound bites, so you have to start them.
Sure.
You know? But I remember when you first signed with Columbia, and one of the first trio records was coming out. You did an EPK, and you were dissecting a monk tune. I don't know if you remember, if you know what I'm talking about. But one of the things that came out of that was this deep love of the piano and a love and understanding of all the unique original voices that came with the piano. And maybe if you could address what drew you to the piano and what people got inside your heart and drove you to master the piano.
When I was a kid, we had a piano in the house, and I would play it, and I loved to play it just as, you know, kids like to throw the football around. It was just something that was there. What was a little bit different about my situation is that I grew up in a city that had so many piano players of so many different styles. I mean, there were New Orleans traditional piano players, there were New Orleans R&B piano players, there were modern jazz players, there were classical players, there were, you know, Caribbean sounding players, and I heard all of these different musicians, and, you know, being a young piano player, I identified with them. And it wasn't until I started studying with Ellis Marsalis when I was about probably 13 that I started to really become influenced by people that were outside of New Orleans. You know, everybody from Herbie to McCoy to Monk to Duke, James P., Bill Evans, Errol Garner. I mean, all of these people. You know, I had heard little bits and pieces of them, but I really started to focus on them as part of my education, you know, and that was an incredible time in my life, a very impressionable time, as most artists go through when they're, you know, in their teens and 20s. They kind of take what they can from other people. I was just joking with McCoy about that. He was saying how he's just a link in the chain. I said, no, I'm a link in the chain. I said, you're a pretty good part of the whole chain, you know. I said, you really messed it up for people like me and every other piano player who came after you, you know.
Great. There's Monk and Ellington? Yeah, it is. Monk and Ellington, do you want them? Are they in the show?
Ellington probably.
Could you say something about Ellington?
Sure.
They're going to do, I think, an orchestral tribute to him.
Oh, nice.
Deal with him as a piano player or whatever.
Okay. Duke Ellington, to me, is probably one of the, if I had to pick three of the greatest musicians of all time in any genre of music, he'd be there. starting with his piano playing. As charismatic as he was, and as elegant as he was, and a great showman, his piano playing was still the root of everything. I mean, you can, even when he doesn't play as much, you can hear his musical ideas coming through in his orchestrations and in his arrangements and things like that. And he's just such a hero of mine. Obviously, his piano playing changed history. I mean, changed, obviously the way I play, but even people that I admire, like Monk, clearly were directly coming out of what Duke did. And it's amazing to have that. It's almost like when you think of Picasso, what an amazing draftsman he was. I mean, if he were going to paint your picture, he could probably paint it to look like a photograph. But the choices that he made later in life not to do that were basically for him and anybody who could keep up with him artistically, and realize that he made those choices for very, very specific reasons. And they may have looked simplistic to the uninformed. Duke was very much like that, and I think it takes an intensely strong musician to make choices like that. Monk would be another example of a guy who made choices that most people would look at and say, what are you doing? Why would you choose to play like that, when you can virtually do anything on the piano? But they're not aware of the process that they had to take to get there, So Duke obviously was the number one, I think, on the food chain for decision making,
That's great. That's great.
So
Anything
how
else?
about Louis Armstrong in New Orleans?
Oh,
And that's it.
My number one hero is Louis Armstrong. He was such a presence in New Orleans even when I was a kid after he died. I think he died in, 71 or something like that, and I was born in 67, so I never really heard him play. But I was around his influence is so strong in New Orleans. It's something that even people today can't quite grasp. Everything that I do on stage, when I smile at people, when I dance around, when I embrace the audience and the opportunity that I have to be out there, when I appear to love what I'm doing, which I do, that's all Louis Armstrong's influence. I mean, he made it okay to be the greatest musician in the world and be the greatest entertainer in the world at the same time. There's only one of him. Nobody will ever get to that level again. But he made it okay for young musicians like me when I was coming up to play jazz music, but still identify with an audience. Because when I moved to New York, that was not cool, and it's still not that cool. But I don't care, because he did it. And if that's like when I saw Duke Ellington, we used to wear that ponytail. I mean, if he wore a ponytail, I could come out and maybe wear something that I thought was cool or different, But looking at Louis Armstrong come out and smile and have fun, it's, I think you have to be pretty special to do that, and he's my all-time hero.
great.
Great.
Yeah, wonderful.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank y'all. Thanks, Michael. I appreciate it, man. Thanks, guys.